All right, here we go. So yes, welcome to the final webinar of this academic course. My name is Sam and I'm from New Zealand, if any of you are wondering about my accent. But my life is now in Spain and I live and work here in San Sebastian, working at the London School of Languages, and we are here to bring you today's webinar. I'm a teacher and teacher trainer, and today's webinar is all about how to increase your language awareness. So, right, let's go. By the way, there is a chat here. So if there are any questions that you want to ask, feel free to put them there. All right. So let's have a look at what we're about to go through today. So to begin with, we're going to start with a definition of what language awareness is and how it contrasts with language proficiency. Then we'll look at how language awareness can help your teaching, and this can include both in and out of the classroom. After that, we'll examine an example of language awareness in action, taken from a recent CPD session here at London School of Languages. CPD, that means Continuing Professional Development, which I have to do as a teacher trainer here. And so this is a little snippet from one of our sessions that I did. Next, we'll briefly touch upon CLIL, that is Content and Language Integrated Learning, and how that might tie in with language awareness, and some common misconceptions about that type of teaching. And then 10 simple ways that you, as teachers, can help develop your own language awareness. Before concluding, and of course, at the end, there'll be time for some questions, should you have any, right at the end as well. All right, so let's get started. So yes, first off, I thought I'd start with a Chinese proverb that I came across in an article that was actually written about this topic. And there's our little goldfish. And it is, if you want to know about water, don't ask a fish. And this really is the perfect analogy for what we're looking at today. And if you're not sure about what it means, then basically when you're immersed in something, water in the fish's case, and it's like your natural environment, it's really hard to get an objective, clear picture of things, as there's no other point of reference because you're just in it. And, you know, the water for the fish, it's taken for granted. And so similarly, when we look at language, we could say, if you want to know how a language works, a native speaker won't necessarily be able to help. And so a native speaker can communicate fine, absolutely. In theory, they're proficient. But to actually know and to be able to explain language, how it's been used, that's another story. And this is what we mean by language awareness. So I guess, as mentioned, language awareness, it's the knowing about a language, the ins and outs. You know, why is this and not that? Subtle differences in meaning between words, collocational fields, how to explain such and such a grammar point. This is the knowing about a language. And yes, this is quite distinct from language proficiency, which is the ability to use a language, to speak, to write, to communicate, to interact with others, comprehend texts, and so on. And so, as well, I have a quote here from Matthew Ellman, who wrote actually that blog, or blog article which contained that quote, the one I read. And he says, yes, language awareness is the subject matter of language teaching, and any good teacher needs to know their subject. I mean, we wouldn't expect anything less from doctors. You know, they need the necessary knowledge to do their job successfully. And equally, so should we, language teachers. You know, we should be the authority in the classroom. We need the knowledge to do our job successfully. Although, bearing in mind, this is not about knowing everything. That's almost impossible. But it's about being prepared to fill in the gaps, the knowledge gaps when needed. And so this is what we mean by language awareness. And so the great Scott Thornbury, he said, in an ideal world, the language teacher will be both language proficient and language aware. And that way, you get the best of both worlds. The ability to communicate and to be able to explain it. And I will say that to a certain extent, this balance also applies to students as well as teachers, because to learn a language, it's not just turn up and get some new words and you know it. You need to be aware of how to combine those words and why you can do this and why not, especially those doing exam courses. So this obviously applies to teachers, but to students as well. If they don't have language awareness, there's a high chance things can turn into a bit of a word salad. And as we know, that's funny, but maybe not the best thing for their language learning. All right. So let's have a brief look at how language awareness can help our teaching. Obviously, LA, language awareness, in case you weren't aware. So, first up, better language awareness can aid teaching in various ways. One of them being predicting language problems in advance and finding ways to overcome them. Because, when you know the language, you're able to help your students navigate that path, avoiding the pitfalls, or maybe letting them make the mistakes, but ensuring that they learn from it. And this point in particular applies to language teachers who have learned, I guess, English or whatever language you're teaching yourself. You have a huge advantage there. And, the point is to maximize your knowledge of the likely issues, and then you can handle them appropriately with students. All right, second, effectively working with course books, adapting them if necessary. So with increased language awareness, you're more likely to be able to see the connections that the coursebook writers are trying to make, the way a lesson is built up, the way it flows, such as the need for a gist task before a detailed reading or listening. And you can also, when looking at the pages, you can, I guess, deem what needs more time and what can be dropped if necessary. So having a better language awareness definitely helps with using the coursebook in a more effective way. Thirdly, ensuring lessons are taught at the right level. So yes, we have, or your classes, are probably split into levels, but obviously not every class has the same ability as another. And so the same page in a coursebook might need more or less attention, or scaffolding, where you help the students, support them as you go through it, and taking it away as they get better. And one way to be able to judge this is, of course, having enhanced language awareness. Sorry, my throat is a little bit scratchy today, so I'll be having some water. All right. Fourth point, responding to student questions. Well, hopefully your students ask them, because it's a big part of language teaching, and questions are hugely important. But sometimes, yes, students need to be pushed to ask them, I know. But when they do ask them, we need to answer, and ideally give them an answer that helps them. As mentioned before, I realize we don't know everything. And yes, sometimes you have to say the classic, I'll get back to you on that one. Sorry, fly. And make sure you do get back to them, by the way. But again, the better your language awareness, the better prepared you are to give a satisfactory answer. in that moment. And that is a pretty cool feeling when you can do that. But to be able to do so, language awareness comes back to it again. All right, the fifth point, exploiting authentic texts. And it's great to include authentic texts in class. They're very engaging and stimulating. The only thing is you have to ensure that they are wisely selected. No Wall Street Journal, for example, to a young learners class, although it could be good for numbers. Anyway, with these authentic texts, and if they're used appropriately, you have to then make decisions. Are you going to focus on collocations, grammar structures, text organization, this kind of thing? And again, your language awareness is obviously going to be the one helping you make those decisions about how to use your authentic text. All right, next, giving feedback. And of course, you want to make sure that your feedback is comprehensible to the student and worthwhile, so that for the student having heard it, that they are all the better for it. Otherwise, what's the point of giving feedback? And when you have better language awareness, you're able to explain to the student or help them with the knowledge that they need at that point in time. You don't have to give them everything, but what they need. And yes, in a comprehensible way. All right, and lastly on our list here, dealing with student errors and recognizing what is not an error. Students make errors all the time, which is great because we want them to learn, and that's one way of learning. But should we correct everything that they say that came out wrong? Probably not. No, because and it's your language awareness which is going to tell you, which errors need immediate work there in the moment, on the spot correction, or maybe which could be delayed, looked at it at a later time. Also, is it something for the whole class? Is everyone making the same error, or is it just that one student? Or again, is it a slip, not an error? So something that the student knows, but just in the matter or the moment when they've been speaking fluently, yeah, it just came out wrong, but they know it. So again, your language awareness will be able to help you in all of these different aspects of your teaching. And I mentioned him before with the Chinese proverb, and these ideas also came from Matthew Ullman's blog article. So big credit to Matt there. Thanks for helping me with this webinar. All right. So I thought, yes, that I would bring in a little snippet from the recent CPD session that I did on language awareness and specifically verbs with our teachers. As I had mentioned, one of my jobs as a teacher trainer is to deliver these sessions during the term to our teachers. And this one here specifically was based on Michael Lewis's book, The English Verb. Well worth a read if you haven't, although perhaps not for bedtime reading, but definitely to increase your language awareness. It was a real eye-opener for me. A few things that even blew my mind. So yes, over the next few slides, we're just going to look at some things that happened in that CPD and, well, I guess share a little bit of what we do in our sessions. So this slide here, we had some examples of sentences from the book. As you can see, they are in the present simple and the past simple. And the teachers just had to analyze their use. So sort of the typical present simple for habits or past simple for finished actions and so on. So just looking at these, they had to analyze what these sentences were doing. So actually, I'll just give you 30 seconds just to have a look at these, think about how the verb has been used, how the textbook or the course book might explain the grammar here. All right, so I'll give you 30 seconds just to look at these. All right. So yes, for you English teachers out there, I'm sure this would have been no problem. But let's have a look. We'll go through the uses. So here we have present simple for, well, the first one, the mail always arrives at this time, habitual events, with no specific time reference. It just happens every day. The other one, the second one, it was crazy. He just comes in and demands $1,000 or else. Sounds like a bank robbery. But yeah, telling a story. Although that story is something that happened, but they're using the present tense to bring it into the now, to make it seem more real or realistic. But it's actually referring to the past. Water boils at 100 degrees Celsius. There we go, a general truth, a fact. But again, no specific time reference here. We leave at 4 o'clock tomorrow. Okay, tomorrow's there, it tells us, yes, that it's in the future. But even without that word tomorrow, for example, right now, 4 o'clock is in the future. And similarly, when we get there, I'll knock on the door, referring to a future event, in this case indicated by when. All right, so present simple for a variety of things there. Past simple. I'd tell you if I knew. Yeah, an unlikely situation talking about now or potentially a little bit in the future. The second conditional, if you're, well, as we commonly call it. It's high time we left. So you might be at a party and you want to get out of there, but it's happening right now. But you're going to use the past to say that something should have happened before. We need to get out of here. We should have left earlier. So we can use it's high time we left to talk about something now, about what should have happened before. I wish I had a dog. I do, actually, true statement. Hopefully soon, one day. So it's right now my wish, but I'm using the past to express it. Why? Because it's unrealistic that I'm going to get a dog right now. So we're using the past there. And I saw him yesterday. This is the typical finished action, factual information, a finished action in the past. So similar to the present, the past, it's got a variety of time references here. So there's sort of, I guess, a conclusion that we, that you can come to when looking at this. And this is what we found out. So yes, the grammar name, doesn't often relate to real time. So the name is a bit of a misnomer when we say past simple, because could refer to the present, or present simple could refer to the future. So yes, a bit of a misnomer there. And it can't be relied upon to explain the function of the verb. So this in turn indicates that perhaps there's something else that unites, for example, all of those present simple verbs. And the question is, what is this underlying common factor? And, well, I'm not going to reveal it here, sorry. That was what we went into in depth in the CPD, but if you are interested, definitely check out the book. It will tell you. All right, so moving on, that was one thing we looked at, sort of the uses of these verbs and the names and the underlying concept of the verb. But we also had a brief look at the importance of the speaker, the one making an utterance. And so here are some sentences. Ooh, I saw him this morning. I've seen him this morning. Well, actually, we've got a couple of others. She said it's raining. She said it was raining. And with these, they convey the same details. However, a choice has been made to use one and not the other. And when you examine these choices, it can get quite interesting. And it's about looking at what we consider, as the information we want to impart exactly. What is the speaker's perspective of the situation? And these choices, they affect the language we use. And it might not even be a conscious choice, but a subconscious one, just happening in that moment of speaking, but there is a choice going on. And so with this, well, I guess, yes, this is kind of what I just mentioned. You have this, for the same details, there can be multiple perspectives and or different features that you can emphasize. And so the grammar used is often a choice. So for example, that the one up the top, I saw him this morning, I've seen him this morning, using the past simple, it puts that distance between you speaking it and the event. But I've seen him this morning, the use of the present perfect there, there's an element of present there. And so yes, the person might still be around or able to be found. And with the others, similarly, there's that sort of distance between she said it was raining and she said it is raining. The information is the same, but we're putting some distance just by changing that word. Okay. Oh, yes. And then obviously to lighten things, lighten the mood sometimes, because this could be quite dense, quite heavy. Occasionally had a little joke or two. Funnily enough, as language teachers, you might have heard of this before, but this joke is technically incorrect because English doesn't have a future tense. We have various sort of lexical means and other verb forms to express the idea of the future. We don't inflect a verb to indicate the future like you can do, for example, in Spanish. But the joke, yeah, it works anyway. Laugh if you want. All right, and so here we are looking at CLIL and language awareness. As I mentioned before, CLIL is an acronym which stands for Content and Language Integrated Learning. And it refers to the situation where, the context, I guess, where other subjects, like in schools, where you have maths and physics and physical education, music, all these other subjects, where they are taught through another language, English in our case here. And so as the name suggests, content and language integrated learning, the focus is on the subject's content. However, there obviously are still language issues to contend with. And so is language awareness relevant? Oh my God, relevant? Maybe because I just saw the film The Revenant. Here we go. Is language awareness relevant to CLIL? Well, I hope you're all answering in the affirmative. Of course it is, because we're still teaching. The content may be different, but if you're doing it in English, then language awareness is absolutely relevant. And so to quote another article, as a teacher, it is your responsibility to make sure that language isn't a barrier to learning. And how you can overcome this is, of course, if there is a barrier or whatever obstacles are there, language awareness is your friend here. It's going to help you. Both on the part of the teacher, but also, as I mentioned, the student before, supporting in their language awareness too. And so in the CLIL situation, it's not surprising that there are a few sort of misconceptions, perhaps, about language awareness. And so I thought now would just be a good moment just to look at a few of them. So some common CLIL language awareness fallacies. One moment. All right, the first one. Teaching a language isn't part of the job description. Well, I mean, yes, your subject might be physical education or music, that is what you're focusing on. But as we said before, your subject is in a foreign language. And so there needs to be a recognition that some language teaching will appear, whether this is from the vocabulary that you have to teach, or how to write, right? For example, in science, the method of an experiment, like the sequence of it, or even just simple questions, question formation that students might ask. They need to be able to do that correctly. And so they have these things they have to do. And that means that the teacher, besides knowing the content of the subject, they also have to, perhaps put in extra effort to improve their own language awareness to be able to help or effectively teach the subject, so that students can ask those questions, that they do know vocabulary, and that you can explain the differences in meaning or in collocational fields. And that is, again, it all comes back down to language awareness. A bit like a broken record with this, but it is important. Okay, so exactly, it's a fallacy that teaching a language isn't part of the job description. It is. All right, next. Good conversational abilities means good fluency in academic language. And so nowadays, it's not surprising that some students have exceptional speaking and listening skills. With the social media content and the streaming and just the access to everything that they have and the amount they perhaps consume. But if you get them to read, or they have to read an academic text or write something in a certain, in a formal way, then, for all their ability to speak and interact, in this situation, they might not be so well. So, you might even be shocked even that you think they're a fantastic student, which of course they could be, but put them in a situation where they have to comprehend a formal or an academic text, it's a different story. And yeah, so one does not definitely equate to the other. And so language awareness of the student clearly needs work, but obviously for you to help the student, your own language awareness needs the equivalent to match that. And then we have students, especially young learners, are likely to get confused if their parents speak a different language at home. And this was quite common when CLIL first, I guess, well, first, when it started gaining popularity. But recent research has actually shown that it doesn't matter if parents speak a different language at home to what's been used in the classroom. The most important thing is for parents to speak with their children in the language they're most confident in, as that language will be richer and more complex. And so the research showed that the child's or brain development, develops normally, regardless of which language is being used, and that the learning of these concepts will transfer across the languages. It might take a little longer, but it definitely happens. And so, again, this misconception has been shown to be false. And another great article here from Cambridge, that is a link there if you wish to go and check it out, which delves a bit deeper into language awareness and CLIL as well. Okay. And here we are into some tips for you, because as I guess as teachers, you well know that learning never stops, whether that's in the classroom or out of it. I mean, could say it comes with the territory. We are teachers. Yet a lot of time seems to be focused, on our students' learning. And my question to you is, how often do you consider or stop to consider, your own learning in relation to the subject that you teach? For example, in my case, English. And so what we're going to look at here, these 10 ways to increase your language awareness, I will admit they're not exactly groundbreaking. A few do have a cost attached. However, it might just be a little reminder that it's important to find some time to incorporate language awareness, in your sort of no doubt busy teaching schedule. because it is our subject, as mentioned, we need to be the authority. And so any way of improving this is going to help us in all sorts of situations. All right, so how can we, or what can we do? That's what we're going to look at. And the first one, simply learn another language ourselves. Become a student, yes, yourself. And so the act of putting yourself in the student's shoes, like this can reap numerous benefits. But as a language teacher in particular, you're very much aware of what to expect and are more sensitive to the intricacies being taught. And it can also give you an insight into how students might perceive the language you teach, because now suddenly that's where you are. You're in the student's shoes. And depending on the language, there can even be some sort of surprising similarities or radical differences, such as perceptions of time or how the use of verb forms change across culture. And each time your brain clicks and goes, that is language awareness in action. And so by learning another language, you yourself can increase your own language awareness. Okay, number 2, take an exam, challenge yourself. I mean, kind of connected to learning a language before, definitely, for example, the C2 exam. So, I mean, yeah, if you're a student learning a language, then the next step is to give yourself an objective. And doing a C2 proficiency exam, with this one, you can say that you've reached the summit of language competency. And naturally, to get there, that requires a healthy dose of language awareness, along with the study required to get there. And as you know, the moment a student signs up for an exam, the gravity of the situation takes hold, and their focus improves. And so if you do the same, who knows, could happen as well. You're like, oh yes, that's right, and language awareness starts kicking in. All right, alternatively, Cambridge also has this other exam called the TKT. And as you can see there, that stands for the Teaching Knowledge Test, which, it's all in the name, tests a teacher's knowledge. And one of the areas that it covers is, you guessed it, language awareness. So by studying for this, you'll be helping your language awareness as well. Okay. Number 3, well, what you're looking at there is, well, I imagine it's fairly familiar to you. The grammar reference typically found at the back of a student's coursebook. And yes, by all accounts, this is a useful feature. But what we're looking at doing is going beyond the student grammar. Because, remember that what you're looking at there is it's designed for student use. They're the ones who have this book. They're the ones who take it home and will be studying from it. And so as the teacher, it's important that you have a deeper understanding of this grammar being taught. And this is why such grammar-specific reference books, like we have Michael Swan's Practical English Usage, or Martin Parrott's Grammar for English Language Teachers, these really should be a staple in every language school, or even your home. I've got a copy of both of these, in fact. And these are usually considered, recommended reading for your CELTA courses and the like, because they dive deeper into the language or the grammar points compared to a student grammar reference. Just pointing out though, and this is something that I guess a pearl of wisdom that I remember from my CELTA course, and being told this, that always remember a lot of grammar knowledge is actually redundant in the classroom. And just because you know something, it doesn't mean you need to share it. And so, at every level or age or whatever the context, you have to make obviously a judgment on what is necessary for that student or the class. You know, you're not going to give them everything. An A2 student is very different to a C1. So obviously, yes, all of that plays a part in what to impart. But don't despair with the knowledge that is redundant. You know, there will always be a time will appear when a moment will come when you can use it, when there's the perfect person you can perhaps share everything with. Okay. Okay, looks like we're going on to number 4. Number 4, pick up a book. Sounds simple. I don't have one here, but yeah, picking up a book and, you know, opening it doesn't take much effort. Well, obviously, yes, you have to read it and comprehend it, and that could take a bit of effort, you know, stretch the, or give the brain cells a workout, but that is good for you. And I mean, we are, as language teachers, we could say that the ELT profession is sort of oversaturated with books. But that just means you've got a lot to pick and choose from. And hopefully, you know, every sort of language academy or school, there should be a few good reference books, hopefully, in stock that, you know, are there to support you as a teacher. The two I mentioned before are very common. The ones you see on the screen here as well. And these books, you know, they're likely to give you a lot of those answers to those sort of unknown questions. Sorry. And give you maybe golden nuggets of knowledge that, you know, that can be gleaned from these books. Obviously, if you're not sure where to look, you know, because of the amount of books, just ask your colleagues or your head teacher or teacher trainer, and they should be able to point you in the right direction. Obviously, if you intend to buy any yourself, be aware that they're not cheap. So choose wisely and select ones, I guess, related to an aspect that you're interested in or likely to be of use, you know, for more than just a once-off, oh, I just needed it for that. Something that will give you multiple consultations, maybe. All right. So yes, besides the ones we saw before, the ones on screen here, yes, about language, that one especially, very useful because it's got tasks in it that are designed specifically to get you thinking about language, as the name suggests, and of course, raising your language awareness. There are other books that also have tasks as well, but that one in particular has some excellent ones. Okay, number 5. 5 Alive. How did that come up? I think it was... Anyway, sorry, number 5. Here we go. Notice authentic language in use. Beyond the classroom walls, there, you know, language exists in its natural context, and it's, you know, used in countless ways. Yet everything out there, you know, also abides by the grammar structures and meanings and the practice that we do in class. So what better way to see language in action than noticing how it's used authentically? As we mentioned before, you know, you can exploit authentic texts in class. However, in this case, we're talking maybe about as the teacher noticing what you see out there. And so I will say a word of warning about this. It can actually take some practice to become conscious of hearing or reading the structures and the phrasal verbs and the idioms, you know, while you're reading a newspaper or watching a TV series or listening to a song. Because obviously the main purpose there is you want to enjoy whatever you're doing. So to activate the, the noticing switch does require a bit of practice and conscious effort. Although, yes, having said that, there's also the salience effect, where after teaching something, phrasal verbs or whatever, you suddenly, start seeing it everywhere, hearing that structure in songs, or that idiom, or seeing an inversion in the novel you're reading. Try to think of an example. On the way walking here, actually, listening to the great Poison's greatest hits. Not sure what that says to my music taste, but anyway, there was a song that was like, "I wish I did know," and I was like, "Oh yeah, we just did that like this week." So if we hadn't done that, I might not have heard it, but because it was salient, it was in my mind from class. There was like a trigger, and I was like, "Oh yeah, okay, wish plus the past simple." For a wish that right now I currently don't have. And this actually made even more interesting. I wish I did know, for the use of the auxiliary verb to add emphasis. Might even use this in my class, the next one. See if they can see if it's as salient to them as it is for me when I was walking here this morning. Okay, so yes, noticing authentic language in use, a great way to enhance your language awareness. All right, number 6, staying up to date. So yeah, the older we become, often the further we get from knowing how, maybe our own language is evolving, or what slang teenagers are currently using. Even more so if, you're teaching in a non-English speaking country. For example, I'm in Spain, but from New Zealand. And yeah, to be honest, I'm not quite sure what the teenagers would be using back there. I need to stay a bit more up to date with this. And even though you yourself, as the teacher, you might not be using such language, yeah, for teaching purposes, it is important to stay up to date with it, because our students are likely to go out there and come across it. One place where that can be interesting, or to help with this, dictionary websites and their word of the year or words of the year, yes, can be quite useful in this regard. Just a quick search while planning this. Recent examples for word of the year include Nepo Baby, Bazball. Cricketers out there will know what I'm talking about. And NFT, non-fungible token. And so these are now sort of in fairly common usage, whereas maybe a few years ago they weren't. But it's also not just about the sort of new words, but also the changing use of words. For example, tweeting. It's not just what birds do anymore. And a unicorn it's not just a mythical creature. If you're not sure, it's like a startup company that's valued at over $1 billion. That's a common meaning or common usage of unicorn nowadays. And from most of the examples I've just mentioned, yes, technology naturally plays a big role in this sort of evolution or creation of new language. But actually, having a look at the dictionary's sort of words of the year, like on Wikipedia, they've got different dictionaries in there, through the years. It's also quite an interesting cultural sort of snapshot of society, in the way that these words and what was being used for a lot in that year, sort of they express what was happening as well, like the pandemic or political and sporting events. So it's a nice way to sort of be a bit nostalgic perhaps about the years gone by. All right, moving on to number 7. And this here represents taking an interest in etymology. And so this is essentially, yeah, looking back in time and getting to the root of a word. And for those linguistic majors out there or people interested in it, yeah, you often get these sort of family trees, and you can, follow a word through history. But by being interested in etymology, it can allow teachers and students as well, to see the logic behind meaning, which is perhaps changed from the literal, maybe to the more figurative. It can also help with understanding affixes and how words might be shared across borders, countries, sort of France and Spain, or also maybe how they've been changed a little bit, and also having a look at false friends, because yeah, maybe the root is the same, but yeah, it's evolved into something else in one country or another. So yeah, there are a lot of fields, obviously, associated with ELT, but knowing where words come from can be of great assistance in increasing language awareness. And I will say, not to mention building up a collection of fascinating stories, because some of the expressions, they might have an interesting story behind them. An example, actually, I got one. One that came up in class recently was to throw your hat in the ring, where, when you announce your intention to enter a competition. And so we found out, a little bit of Google, thanks Google, that boxers literally threw their hats into the boxing ring to announce that they wanted to fight. And this, dated sort of back to the 19th century. But I imagine is still in, fairly common usage today. Actually, that's another thing you can check out on like Google, the common usage, which I might do that for that expression after the presentation here, or the webinar. Okay, number 8, don't shy away from questions. So you don't have to be a student to ask questions. Teachers can ask them too. And as the old adage goes, if you're wondering about something, it's likely that others are too. And so as much as students may think or even expect us to be walking encyclopedias, we don't know everything. And there are simply things that we do not know. And so in this case, yes, ask questions. And so to do this, you can obviously take advantage of maybe more experienced colleagues who, might have had to teach that or had that question before, or you can go to forums, for where people ask questions there, and hopefully someone with the knowledge is answered. Social media groups, all sorts of ways to find an answer to your question. The field of education is generally a very sharing and caring environment, and hopefully there's always someone willing to pass on their knowledge, because as teachers it's important to encourage questions and to help to give an answer. And in this case, you never know, you could then be the one to then pass that crucial knowledge on, which helps someone else's language awareness. The sort of the teacher's version, or the language teacher's version of pay it forward, in essence. Okay. Number 9, invest in yourself. So yes, I did mention a few of these might have a cost attached. And so, yeah, living costs money, of course. And, but there is, well, I guess, what better way to spend it than investing in yourself, in your own professional development. And if you're a language teacher or an English language teacher, In the ELT world, this is likely to take the form of enrolling in a course, becoming a student maybe. It could be attending a conference or buying books, as mentioned before. And yes, ELT books are definitely an investment. By the way, quick plug here. We did have a great conference here in San Sebastian a few weeks ago with the likes of Scott Thornbury, Chris Rowland, Antonia Claire, and others. They were here sharing their ideas, giving talks, and yeah, definitely well worth the trip here for those who came and those who live here and decided to come. And so that's just one example of investing in yourself. But just by doing one of these or all, or you're likely to come across new ideas while also increasing your knowledge and, of course, your language awareness as well. And finally, number 10, I feel like we need a drum roll here. The final idea to increase your language awareness is taking time for introspection. Taking time to reflect on our teaching is a very useful undertaking. And better still, when the purpose is to identify language knowledge weaknesses and how they can be improved. And introspection, as cliche as it sounds, offers the chance to really examine what is needed and then hopefully do something about it. That way, a weakness is merely the first stop on its way to becoming a strength. For example, I'll take note of things that cropped up in class, and if I have a doubt or two, I'll go and check on them later or think about it. And from new teachers all the way to the most experienced, reflection is an important habit to have as a teacher. Okay, and that there takes us to the end of our 10 ways that you can help with your own language awareness. And that brings us to the conclusions for today. So let's have a run through of the key takeaways from today's webinar. First, as I hope you know or have come to realize, language awareness is a vitally important part of ongoing professional development, and yes, can come in many forms. And especially like the teacher training sort of seminars or sessions, that I do, they have elements of language awareness in them. But at the end of the day, the better your language awareness, the more sort of well-rounded and better a teacher you're likely to be. Okay. Secondly, enhanced language awareness allows a more critical look at course books, tests, and authentic texts, and how to exploit them to the full, how to maximize them. So yeah, as teachers, we deal with a range of material, and perhaps some of it could be explained in a different way to what the book says, but you need the knowledge to be able to do so and to make it comprehensible to the students. And so what do you need? Language awareness. And it's, yes, about, seeing the potential in things, but then using your knowledge to appropriately exploit it. With authentic material, it's almost limitless out there, but has to be used appropriately. Okay, next, be careful of relying purely on course books for language awareness and to have a healthy balance between language awareness and language proficiency, which is often students' primary objective. Well, fairly self-explanatory. Yeah, it's about needing to know more than what the course book says, and bearing in mind that students are usually most interested in proficiency, and so they want to be able to communicate and use the language, and so what goes on in class needs to reflect this, that balance. Okay, remember that a lot of knowledge is redundant when teaching. You're only giving what is necessary at that moment in time. Too much focus on accuracy risks curtailing students' fluency. So yeah, I think I did mention it before, but yeah, just because you know something doesn't have to be said. And we, of course, we want students to have their own language awareness, need to increase that as well. But there are times when fluency over accuracy is called for, and need to keep that in mind. All right, the penultimate point, greater language awareness gives better insight into the student learning process and the challenges they face. Well, yes, indeed it does. Even more so if you've had to learn the language yourself and you're a non-native teacher. I mean, like I said, you have such a big advantage when it comes to going through the experience yourself and seeing all the pitfalls. And then when you come out the other side and you're actually teaching the language, you are the perfect inspirational role model for how far someone can actually take a language, becoming proficient and becoming the teacher in it. Amazing. And last but not least, the more language aware you are, the more effective your teaching is likely to be. So in essence, this is sort of a summary of everything that's been said. You'll be better prepared to answer questions, to deal with the language issues. Because if you're not sure yourself, how can we expect our students to get to grips with the same information? And so as the teacher, we're often that mediator between the information and student understanding. And more often than not, it's our quality of language awareness that makes the difference. All right. Well, there we go. Yes, on time. There you have it. How to increase your language awareness. And that means it's question and answer time. So for anyone out there, I'll just give you a moment to write in the chat any questions. Don't be shy, as what was it, point number 8, I think was. Don't shy away from questions, so feel free. All right. It looks like it's a bit of a quiet morning out there. Understandable. It's a Friday, and for those here in San Sebastian especially, beautiful morning out there. A nice walk along the beach at this time. Yes, perhaps that's what you're doing. All right. So just a little bit of admin that wraps it up for today. But before I sign off, remember that we do have all our previous webinars on the platform. They're there for you to, help with your language awareness even, and to have a look at. Also, after summer, when the next academic course begins, we will be back with another round of webinars in our ongoing series, which is brought to you by Karen McGee, Inigo Casas, Alex Webb, and myself, Sam Denman. So please keep an eye out for these in the future. They'll be on, or the info will be on all our social media accounts, which you can find here on Facebook and Instagram. Also, if you have any further questions, please feel free to email me. My email is there, sam@london-school.com. And yes, just a reminder, this webinar will be uploaded onto the platform. So if there's anything you missed or wanted to see again, it will be there forever. And well, I guess that does well and truly wrap things up. So once again, thank you for listening. It's been a pleasure hosting you today. And we have well and truly come to the end. So thank you and have a great weekend. Bye-bye.